making your monthly payments again. But right now, if you can't afford it, you don't have to pay it. But you should, know that in the near future, you're going to have to start paying again.
Thank you. And so if someone was recently released, they're formerly incarcerated, do they need to file taxes?
It all depends on how much you made, and my experience is that people that have been incarcerated do not have enough income, attributed to them to have to file a return. So I would say normally if you've been incarcerated for most of the year, that you do not have to file a tax return for that year.
Okay. And what are some, last sort of question, what are some low-cost tax assistance programs that you're aware of? And that's a question for Paul and Luis.
Okay, well, I'll give you the number for VITA. This is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. These are professionals that help low-income people file their tax returns, and they're kind of specialized at that, doing present year tax returns right now. And there's programs all across the state. So I'll give you a 1-800 number, which is a number, and you just tell them where you're located in the state, and they can tell if there are any programs open around you. I'm hoping that these programs will open up again soon and help people before July 15th, but I can't guarantee that. But you can call 1-800-906-9887. That's the 1-800 number for the VITA services. If you have AARP in your community, AARP office, they help people over 65 to help file their taxes. So you might want to look into that if you're over 65. And then recently I've learned about the United Way of Southeast Louisiana. If you go to their website, they apparently have some kind of setup with a private tax company that they are going to allow people to use their tax service free to file. So kind of similar to the IRS setup, but hopefully a little bit more transparent. So you might want to go to the United Way of Southeast Louisiana website, and on their homepage is a button to push for help in filing tax returns. And then there's the IRS.gov website itself. So at this time, that's really all the free assistance that I know of.
Paul, have you heard anything about, I know that some of the law schools used to have a tax clinic, about any of the schools opening up maybe in August that would be able to assist people if they get an extension or until October?
Well, there is a VITA program located at Loyola. I do know the person that runs it at this time. I think it's kind of up in the air whether they're going to be back in business and when that would be. And I want to clarify that I am with the Low Income Taxpayers Clinic at Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, and we help people who have IRS issues. We are not tax preparers, and I cannot electronically file with the IRS, so we are not the people to do present year tax returns for people. If I do a tax return, I have to send it in paper, which is right now it's going to take months and months and months for the IRS to process.
Thank you both for that. So I want to transition now to some stimulus questions. We've had plenty of folks who are, interested in this program, which makes a lot of sense. People are hurting right now financially. So Louise, could you start with just who is eligible with the stimulus funds or for the stimulus funds?
The first stimulus, we're hoping for a second stimulus, but the first stimulus that was declared in March, along with the CARES Act that was signed, I believe, in March, the beginning of March, allowed for a stimulus package, a stimulus check to go out to most American families. There are exclusions about if you are over a certain income, and most of my clients are not over that income, so I think it's $150,000 for a single person, and then it's more for a no, that's not right. Go ahead.
It's $75,000 for individuals and $150,000 for married families.
Okay, so Paul's got that down. And then if you also have children in the family at home that are under a certain age, and I believe it's 17, then there is an additional $500 per child. And so that's your eligibility. It is, I believe that if you are undocumented, or if you are married to an undocumented person, that you are ineligible for the stimulus payment.
Thank you, Louise. And so if someone receives the stimulus payment, they accept it, they put it in their bank, or it's direct deposited in their bank from the federal government, how does that impact someone's taxes?
That's a good Paul question.
Paul.
Well, I've got a good answer. It won't impact your taxes at all. It's considered not taxable income for 2020, so you will not have to pay taxes on it next year.
Thank you, Paul. And so if someone receives a stimulus check, they've been hearing this $1,200 number all over the place, but they receive their check and it's lower than $1,200. Why might that be? Why might someone get a stimulus check that's lower than $1,200? And is there anything they can do about that?
So from what I understand is that the federal government is allowed to withhold, I guess, a portion of the stimulus check of the $1,200 if there is a tax debt, and there may be, and Paul, you know more than I, a child support issue. If there is a child support lien, I guess. Do you have more information?
Yeah, if you're listed as having child support obligations, then that's the one thing that the federal government will withhold money for, so that you don't even receive it at all. Child support obligations. They will not withhold any money for federal tax debt. Like if you owe them money for other years, they're actually not going to seize that and hold that for those other years. They're going to give it to you anyway. But I would say that sometimes after the money hits your bank account, it may be seized by state IRS or state tax agencies. It may be seized by private creditors who may have a garnishment on your bank account. So there's no protection against these other people who might have garnishments against your bank account. So it may be too late now, but you might have wanted to direct those funds to another account or something like that if you had garnishments against your bank account. Or if these private creditors find out that you have this money, they may file something in court to try and seize it or get it from you. The states are all different. Unfortunately, Louisiana does not have much protection in the way of other creditors coming after these stimulus funds.
Thank you both. And so at this point, I think I woke up this morning, I read an article that there's roughly 30 million Americans who still haven't received their stimulus funds. So if there's folks out there who are listening who are a part of this population who might not have received their stimulus check, what is it that they should do in order to receive this?
You want to go with that, Louise?
Go ahead, go for it.
Okay. Well, you can generally check the status of your stimulus payment on the IRS.gov website. There's I guess it's what's my status or something like that. Unfortunately, it will not have information for people who just didn't make enough money to file 2019 taxes, and so they registered through the IRS portal, the non-filers portal. And they don't get Social Security or SSI or VA benefits or anything like that. Apparently, the information for those people is not put over into that update status thing. So you might not be able to find out anything there if that's your situation. I have heard reports of people who are being audited for past years if they claim children, and yet they're being audited for 2018 for their claims of children dependents or whatever, that it may delay the rewarding of the stimulus funds, because they may be looking at, well, does this person really have a child in their household? I've also heard reports that sometimes people went and filed a 2018 or 2019 taxes, and they did it with a tax preparer, and that tax preparer gave them like an advanced loan on the refund and said, hey, you know, it's going to take a while for the government to do this, but here, I'll give you the money. I'm going to charge you a little interest or a little fee for it. What happens in that situation is that tax preparer usually sets up a bank account for the refund to go into that they have access to and not you. They give you the money beforehand, and then they get the money from the government. So unfortunately, that bank information may be still on file with the government, and so they send the stimulus payment to that bank account that's controlled by the tax preparer and not by the taxpayer. So if you look on the IRS website and you find out there's some kind of bank account information there that's not familiar to you, that might have happened to you, and you got to approach the tax preparer and say, hey, you got my money in your account and I need to get that money. Or sometimes you can go to the bank, and sometimes it's an online bank, but you may be able to contact the online bank and prove your identity and say, hey, those funds belong to me, not to this tax preparer. If you're not successful either one of those ways, you might actually have to file a lawsuit in court against the tax preparer, because basically they're stealing your money. They're taking your money and not giving it to you. But you might have to file a lawsuit against them for that.
Thank you for that, Paul.
Wow. So let me ask a question, because most of my clients that are on SSI or on Social Security or went online and pressed the button on the IRS website have received their stimulus checks or a deposit, a direct deposit through the bank account where they get their SSI. And that is some of my clients that are recently incarcerated as well. And is that what you have found, that those deposits have, for the most part, been made?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the government is saying that most of them have been made, and they are paid into the account or the debit card or wherever you usually get your VA funds or your SSI or Social Security disability or retirement. Apparently, the money was supposed to go into those same accounts where you get those funds. But I have heard of people not getting them, and I think a lot of times it's because they claim dependents, but they have no tax returns to prove that, and so the government may be taking a second look at that, or if you've been audited in the past about that issue, they may be taking a second look at it.
Okay.
So, Louise, you had earlier sort of kind of like hinted to another round of potential stimulus checks that are coming out. I know that's a question that we've heard from some folks. Could you provide any sort of like status update on where the federal government's at on the potential second?
So I nothing that I haven't seen in the news, certainly. And they're talking about that they're looking at coming back in July, maybe even the first week of July, to continue these discussions around the second stimulus package. But it's just talk. There's nothing that has been signed off on and that is in the works to be received by the Americans.
Thank you for that, Louise. So I want to now transition over to our Small Business Administration loans and grants portion. Louise, I want to ask you, can you sort of explain more about the Small Business Administration loans and grants, who is eligible in general? Just a quick like overview of it.
So what the CARES Act did was that they made and this kind of the unemployment falls into this as well, is that they set up systems so that people that are not traditionally able to get a small business loan or to get unemployment or to get some kind of benefits in these days of emergency and disaster are able to access small business administration loans. And they also have set up a system where there's a grant involved, and also that sometimes loans can be forgiven. So it's a complicated thing and it's hard to navigate, but there's something called the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, I think. And what they are doing is they have funded that for small businesses that have expenses to reimburse them, and 75% of this loan has to go for employee pay, whether it's like a salary or wages or something like that, and 25% can go to like your mortgage or your rent or utilities, something like that. And the amount that they are giving out is 2.5 times your payroll, up to a certain amount. And so that is for small businesses. But what the CARES Act did was they made it so that if you are an independent contractor, or you are a small business owner or something that has only one employee like yourself, that you can also apply for this. And in the past, there was no such things for independent contractors and for all of our servers and bartenders and all those kind of people that are small business owners essentially. So, and with this PPP program, that loan can be forgiven if you prove at some point that you paid the wages of your employees or of yourself or whomever. So, and that kind of works in conjunction. It's called the EIDL. It's also a SBA program, and it is a loan setup. It's the Emergency in something disaster loan. And it is, there's not enough funding as of right now. Actually, I think that they're only accepting applications from a very limited amount of people. However, the EIDL is giving, they will give you an advance for each employee that you have of $1,000, I think up to $10,000, and it is a grant so that you don't have to pay it back, you don't have the loan, and so you can accept that money and moving forward. And then if you want to continue on to file the application for the loan documents with the SBA, then they will, it's all online, everything is online, and you end up, they give you a loan application number. Generally, in the past couple of months, you could check back and try to find out what the status of your loan was, and there wasn't any information available. But as I see it happening now, they actually are moving forward with giving you the loan application number. They're contacting you. A loan officer calls you on the, texts you or emails you and said, hey, we're looking at your small business to provide you a $5,000 or $10,000 or, they seem to be small loans for my clients, certainly. Not like the, what is it, $20 million that Ruth's Chris was approved to go ahead and have to pay their employees, which they gave back, by the way. So
Not jumping into the Ruth Chris debate. But I do want to ask, so we are hearing from folks, who are formerly incarcerated, people who may have started their own business and tried to get SBA loan grants and were rejected. And rejected from the loan grant, that is. What is it that someone can do if they're in that type of situation, or what sort of route might they be able to take?
I'll just answer that and kind of anecdotally, because that's all the information that I have. I do have information from sometimes like the Jefferson Parish net will have a webinar, and they'll publish that, and they'll have an SBA representative there. And those are really awesome things because you can go and you can ask the SBA those kind of questions. And I've attended those in the past. What is happening now is that I had a client that had applied for a PPP, the Paycheck Protection loan, which can be forgiven. So it essentially can turn into a grant. So it's really good for our clients instead of having another SBA loan hanging over them for a long time. And they did a credit check and said that the credit report came back negative, that there was a negative thing on their credit report, and they were denied. And they also said that they did not have adequate information from 2019 because they didn't file their 2019 taxes. So what I encouraged them to do was to go ahead and go onto one of those online services like, online taxes. It's OLT, and come up with their 2019 taxes, their Schedule C, if they have a small business that they're going to file for it, something like that. And then go to another lender because they're all private lenders that one goes through. You're not getting something directly from the SBA. It has to go through a bank or through, this person had gone through PayPal to try to get a loan, and that's who had checked their credit and said that they were not able to get it. So I encourage them to go through, and what they're going through right now is lendio.com or something like that, and to go ahead and try to get all their ducks in a row. If you do have to file your 2019 taxes or just show some income and expenses and those kind of paperwork, to go ahead and do that and then apply again. And especially for the smaller amounts, they do still have funding available, from what I understand.
Okay. And Paul, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would just add that, if you're denied because of your credit check, that everyone is entitled to one free credit report every year from all of the credit reporting agencies. There's three major ones right now: Experian, Union, and another one. You can go to a government website and get your free credit report from all three agencies online. And if you're about to apply for one of these loans, or any kind of loan, really, you probably want to do that and check those reports and see anything negative that you want to dispute. You can dispute that. If you see something like identity theft or loans that you don't know anything about, and there's been identity theft, then you want to deal with that and get that cleared up before you make your application.
But and it is really important, I think, to have some documentation to do it. And if you have to file, because if you just didn't file your 218 taxes, that's not going to be enough. If you have to have something from 2019 to prove to them that you do have people that you're paying, whether it's yourself, but that you have income, you have expenses, and that you are a good applicant, I guess.
Thank you. So I want to switch up a little bit, Louise, and thank you for adding these questions about uh, uh, unemployment insurance and bringing that up, because that's an issue that's been affecting the reentry population as well. So if someone was, and could be open to both of y'all, if someone was recently released from incarceration and they don't have an employment history for the last few years, however long that is, would they be eligible for any state benefit or eligible for the $600 per week CARES Act money that people might be hearing about?
You want to go ahead, Louise? I can start, Paul. I saw that you unmuted, so I didn't know if you had something you wanted to start off with.
I can only give, I'm not an unemployment expert, so I can give some vague information, but if you have something more specific, go ahead.
Just anecdotally again, because I'm no expert, but I've had some, I've been assisting a lot of people with their unemployment, with filing for their unemployment. And generally in Louisiana, the state application, I guess, is a lengthy one. I mean, it can take over an hour for a very savvy person to fill out. And it does ask for your employment history. And if you don't have any, what I have found in, I think, at least 2 clients, if they had no employment history whatsoever, is that the state then gives them a minimal or a minimum amount of $107 per week. And then that allows them to qualify for the federal benefit under the CARES Act, which is the additional $600 per week. So that if you go through the whole process, and even though you don't have the requisite quarters that you needed from last year, I think it's 4 of the last 5 quarters or something like that, or if you had, you were a server or a bartender or an independent contractor, you only had tips, so you don't have a 1099, you don't have W-2s, you got nothing like that, that you would still qualify for the 107, and that kicks in the federal stimulus unemployment package.
Paul, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's the amount of unemployment that you can get depends on how many quarters you've worked, and then it's available for you for so many quarters. So it's a very individual specific question. The agency will give you a decision. If you make an application, you should go ahead and make an application. Hopefully you'll get that minimum amount, and then the federal amount will be good on top of that. But if you're denied, if you're unemployed and you've been denied unemployment and you don't agree with the decision, like you believe that you did work or that they're not counting enough income that you had, give us a call. We have a unit that handles unemployment matters, but they would only, they'd only get involved after you've applied and been denied. So you got to go through that process first. Our number here in New Orleans is area code 504-529-1000. And state that you have an unemployment problem. And if you have a tax issue, IRS tax issue, just a quick commercial for my tax clinic, call that same number. And if you have a federal tax issue, we might be able to help you with that. Like I said before, if your only issue is that you need to file 2019 return, I cannot electronically file a return, so I couldn't do that for you. If you have a pre-existing issue with the IRS, or if you know that you owe money to them, please give us a call. Maybe I'll be able to help with that issue.
Thank you for
Paul,
that.
could you speak to the question of if you are receiving, $700+ a week in unemployment, how that's going to affect your 2020 taxes? And
Sure. Unlike the stimulus funds, unemployment funds are considered taxable income. So in 2020, when you do your, next year, when you do your 2020 return, you're going to have to report any unemployment that you received. The state income tax amount and the federal amount are both taxable income that you'd have to report and pay tax on. So when you receive those benefits, they should ask you, do you want to have federal income tax withheld from this amount that you're getting? And if you can possibly afford it, you go ahead and do that so you don't owe money when you do your 2020 return. If you end up paying too much, then you can get a refund. But you don't want to go next year and find out that you owe a couple of $1,000s that you don't have because of the unemployment that you got.
And so just quickly, for someone who wants to apply for their unemployment benefits, how would they go about doing that?
So it's all online. Everything is online. It's laworks.gov, I think. I'm going to check that out real quick because and it brings you to Louisiana Works. And it takes you through it line by line. And there is a certain place on there where it asks, are you unemployed? Are you able to work? Would you accept a job if if they asked you to come back to work or something? And you have to say, yes, of course, I would work if I could, but there are no jobs. And then the question that is important to fill out is, are you unemployed because of COVID-19? And that's where you have to write yes. And what that does is it kicks in the deferment of job searches, because in Louisiana unemployment, you're required to look for a job and cite those those searches 3 times a week. But because of the pandemic, you are deferred from making a job search. So if you cross all your T's and do it all, they give you a number and they tell you to check back. I assisted a gentleman that had gotten out of Orleans Justice Center and returned home. He applied for unemployment on Friday, and he actually had a deposit on Tuesday. So it is possible. I mean, that's like the most amazing outcome. And then also have clients that are still waiting, certainly, because of there was something in their background, or probably if you don't fill out each page properly, it'll see an error, and then it'll take you back. So be very careful.
Thank you for that. And you brought up a really good question here. Due to COVID-19, if someone was recently released from incarceration to a halfway house, and then was released to be incarcerated at home, are they eligible for any CARES Act stimulus payments or grants, loans, Social Security, disability, or income, since they're technically still being considered incarcerated by DOC?
So that's a good question. I'm trying to work on that in my with a couple clients right now. So from what I understand is, if you are released to a halfway house due to the COVID-19 pandemic, that you are not entitled to it. It is just the same as if you were incarcerated in the Department of Corrections. You don't get Social Security, you don't get SSI, you don't get any stimulus checks and anything like that. Whereas then a lot of the halfway houses are not only just like keeping you for a week and then releasing you, but they're not even keeping you. You go in and you kind of like get processed for a day, and then you are put on at-home incarceration where you can't leave your house at all. So you couldn't go down to the Social Security office or the unemployment, wherever you would go to try to visit your tax person at SLLS. You're not allowed to do any of that. The only thing you can do is online. And sitting around on the phone for 2 hours waiting for a Social Security office to pick up is a very long. It's a very long time. So what I'm telling my clients is to try to go online and do everything they can online, because unlike at the halfway house, when their bills are being paid, at home, they're responsible for all their expenses and, rent and food and all those things. And yet they are still technically incarcerated. And so therefore are technically not entitled to any assistance, any stimulus payments, anything. So it is it's a terrible situation. And I'm encouraging my clients to do as much online and to ask for a telephone appointment with, say, the Social Security office.
Thank you for that.
I know it's not much of an answer, but it's a terrible situation.
Well, no, it's the truth. It's the gray area of this system, and I appreciate that. That's what folks need to hear, and that's why we're here. Paul, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, this is actually a big issue on the listservs that I'm on, various tax directors. The CARES Act, about the stimulus funds, the CARES Act itself does not say anything about prisoners not being eligible for stimulus funds. Then later on, the IRS came out with the directive saying that they were not going to pay incarcerated persons. So to a lawyer, that gives rise to the argument that, hey, the agency was not entitled to make that decision, that Congress has to make that decision, and they didn't. Therefore, it should be assumed that prisoners should get the stimulus funds. And I know that, it might seem strange, hey, someone's in prison, why should they get money? But they have family back home, they have child support obligations. There's reasons why incarcerated persons would need that money. So if you're in that situation, especially if you're in a situation of home incarceration where, you're responsible for your own expenses, the whole reason behind this decision is that, hey, the government is paying your food and your shelter and everything, so you shouldn't get the stimulus funds. But that's not the situation in a home incarceration, according to what Louise is saying. So that even strengthens the argument that, hey, I should be getting the stimulus funds. So you might want to give us a call, 529-1000, if you're in that situation. We can take your information over the phone and correspond with you by mail and all that. And we'll look into it and we'll see if there's a possible case.
Thank you both for that. So we have a few questions that have come in from folks who are watching, and Shemitra will be helping us out with any other questions that come in too. Thank you, Shemitra, for that. So the first question, just about credit checks, like where could someone receive that free credit check that was talked about earlier? And well, let's start with that. So where is a place where someone could receive a free credit check?
Okay, I'm gonna have to find the website, the name of the website. If you give me a second, maybe go on to the next question, and I'll get back to you in a second on that, okay?
Yeah, and I think it is freecreditreport.com, and well, we can keep going there too, right?
That's it.
Is that?
freecreditreport.com. You gotta be careful because there's a bunch of other websites out there that are trying to get your information. So you gotta make sure you're at the official federal website.
And they could still, I think, apply for an annual credit report through the credit bureaus too, correct?
Right, they can go to each individual one, but freecreditreports.com enables you to apply once and get all three reports at once. It's a lot easier.
Oh, gotcha. Great. Thank you for that.
And that is only once a year that you can do that. You can sign up. Like I personally have, what is that? It's one of those credit monitoring, Credit Karma. Is that the one? It's CREDITKARMA. I have that on my smartphone, and it gives me a constantly running credit report. Well, not a credit report, but just a summary, and gives you the 2 of your credit scores.
Thank you.
Creditkarma.com, I think, is that one too. So, and they have a lot of those, and they the way that they do is they have advertising for credit cards and all that stuff, so they're able to do that for free, but it's not a credit check.
Thank you. And then a question with regard to the CARES Act money came in here. Is there any sort of like stop date, or do you all know when the $600 CARES Act money will stop coming to people?
It's supposed to be through July. Is
Okay.
what is I understand, and they are talking about if there is a second package or that they may try to extend that. That's what I've heard. Is July 31, perhaps, I think.
Okay. Great. Well, I'm gonna wait to see if we have Shimitra, do we have any more questions on our page? Nope. Okay. Well, looks like that was it. Hey, I really want to thank you both so much for sharing your time with us here, Louise and Paul, for helping us put together this panel. You know, a lot of folks have a lot of questions about these tax-related issues and these overall benefits-related issues and the SBA issues that we were able to touch upon. So I'm happy that some information is out there. For the folks who are watching on Facebook Live, I think this recording might have been halved a little bit or came in at a different point, but we have it recorded as a backup. So this will be posted online to JAC's website. That's jaclouisiana.org. We have a tab there for COVID resources. So we'll be uploading this video, this panel, so that you could catch the entirety of this, which started off with Paul Tuttle speaking on tax-related issues. So thank you, Louise and Paul, so much. Thank you folks who participated and watched the panel, and Shimitra as well for helping us put this all together.
Thank you, Josh, for putting it together. It's great.
Thank you. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe, everyone.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.